Shalom, and welcome to Torah Jewce. I'm Joshua, and this is presented by Kehillah El Elyon. And today's Torah Jewce, we are talking about the Torah portion, Vayeitzei. Vayeitzei, in Bereshit chapter 29 is where we're going to look today. And we are going to talk about Rachel and Leah, our matriarchs, our mothers of our people. Okay? We are in the portion here. In the beginning, it talks about the Temple Mount. It talks about Yaakov's dream. It talks about his prophecy of seeing the angels in the ladder, Jacob's ladder, as you recall. There are a lot of different ideas of really what this means. The sages say that it is a picture of the Holy Temple because that's where he laid his head. It was the Temple Mount. It was a picture of the priests going up and down doing their daily rituals in the temple. Some say it was a representative of the four kingdoms that would exile Israel. And of course that's Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. In fact, we're still in if you want to say the Roman exile right now. Also, it talks about, of course, that he took 12 stones and he made that cornerstone. So, just a tremendous amount of information in the Torah. But we're going to talk about Rachel and Leah. I think we know the story, how Jacob came. He saw Rachel at where he's watering the herd, the flock, and he loved her. And he went to Laban and wanted to, and he explained who he was and that they were related, and that he would work there, and then he would work for 7 years for Rachel. And then Laban deceived him, and he ended up marrying Leah instead, and then working another 7 years for the ability to marry Rachel. And then here we go. Now, it says in the Torah that in chapter 29, verse 30, that he consorted with Rachel and loved Rachel even more than Leah. Now, the Midrash says Jacob actually ended up hating Leah. Now, let's talk about Leah for a moment. Our description of Leah was, of course, she was the older sister, and Laban explained to him that it was not his custom, his minhag, to marry off the younger daughter. So he married the older daughter first, but it was a deception. Laban was a deceiver. He always was trying. In fact, if you read in the Torah, it says that he rushed out to hug Yaakov because he was a relative, but actually he was hoping to meet him because, well, Laban wasn't very rich at the time. He didn't have a lot of money, and he thought probably Yaakov did because of all the riches that Abraham and Yitzhak had as well. However, the Midrash tells us that Esau had sent out someone to kill Yaakov, and he was not able to do so. So Yaakov said, well, in order to fulfill, just take all of my wealth. It's as if I would be dead. Take all my wealth. So Yaakov actually ended up coming to Laban destitute, without anything. So Laban wasn't very happy about that because he was expecting some riches from Yaakov. But Laban was a deceiver. So this is how he set it up. Now, the time that Yaakov spent with Laban became very rich. His flocks increased, his herds increased, everything increased, his riches, because he was blessed through Yaakov. Just as Hashem said that would happen, that the whole world will be blessed through Abraham and his descendants. And the truth of that promise from Hashem came to pass, and it still to this very day comes to pass, because God's promises are true and just, and they always happen. Now, Yaakov was not very happy with finding out that it was Leah, and it says that Leah had tender eyes. Now, Some say, or we guys. Some say there's a lot of description of what that means. Maybe she couldn't see good, but I tend to like the description of the Midrash that says that she was actually tender-eyed because she spent a lot of time crying, because she was actually promised to Esau. That Laban had 2 daughters, and Yaakov Yaakov had 2 sons, and that one would go. I mean, Isaac had 2 sons, and one would go to the older Esau, which would make sense. Esau, was a few minutes older than Yaakov. That Leah would be married to Esau, and Rachel would be married to Yaakov. And of course, we know Esau's background, and Leah did too, and did not want to be married to him, so she cried a lot. So, the Midrash also tells us that not only did Yaakov love Rachel more, he hated Leah, because he was so perturbed with the deception that he called her a deceiver as well, Leah a deceiver. Now, there's also another Midrash that talks about how Rachel and Jacob actually had a plan as to make sure that nothing like this would have happened, that they had a secret sign and everything to know on the wedding day. Well, because Rachel found out that Leah was going to be the one, and she didn't want to humiliate her sister, so she actually told Leah the secret sign. So when Jacob gave the secret sign to make sure it was Rachel, it was actually Leah, because Rachel didn't want to humiliate her sister. Well, that's kind of an interesting take on it. Also, when Jacob told Leah she was a deceiver of deceivers because of what she did, Leah retorted back to Yaakov and said, "Oh, really? Did you not go to your father claiming to be your brother Esau in order to get the blessing? How can you stand before me and judge me and reproach me for something, the same thing that you did?" Well, what does this teach us? Now, Midrash explains things, not necessarily literal, but maybe what this explains to us is a turn for a turn. When we act deceitfully, there will be someone in our lives that will respond to us deceitfully. When we act kindly, there will be someone in our life that will come and act kindly to us. When we are generous, someone will be generous to us. When we are stingy, somebody will be stingy with us. When we are unforgiving, somebody will be unforgiving to us. But when we do things the right way, when we do things the way Hashem wants us to do, then we can rest assured that there will be blessings through people in our lives. Sometimes I think I know I do, have a tendency to look upon mankind with frustration. And the reason I do that is because I'm frustrated with myself. The people I come in contact with, if you stop to think, the things about them that irritate you are the same things that you do. And you're probably irritating someone else. Rabbi Brody and Rabbi Shalom Arush talk about being a stick. How, it's not the people in this world who are the ones who are out to get, who are doing the things to you. It's Hashem trying to get your attention to help you correct your character traits and to do the things you're supposed to do. When you look at it that way, if you say, well, this person cut me off in traffic, that's so-and-so, and so forth and so on, and you think that you're just, why are you treated that way when you're driving on the road? Why do people, are more considerate? Well, maybe it's because you haven't been considerate yourself. Maybe because you're arrogant and you think that that you own the road. That maybe it's a humbling thing. Maybe you should just stop and say, thank you, Hashem. Thank you for sending me little messages throughout the day. It's like little post-it notes, Hashem's little text messages each day when we come in contact with people that kind of rub us the wrong way. It's because there's something in us that we need to change, and we're probably rubbing other people the wrong way too if we were really honest with ourselves and we really sat down and thought about it. So here's a good point from the Midrash saying that, you know, Jacob deceived his father into getting the blessing. Well, he was going to get the blessing anyway, because the angel had already told his mother that the older would serve the younger. But she needed to make sure. She was afraid that Yitzhak was going to, which maybe that was a lack of faith on her part, because if the angel told her. But sometimes it's because we know something and we try and force the issue. We try and force it in, it comes sooner, or we don't trust and believe in God enough, because He does it in His own perfect time, that we get impatient. And usually that's when we make mistakes, and then people have to pay for that. Well, you know, maybe this is what happens when people pay for it. So it says that he loved Leah, and then he began to dislike her because of his growing grudges that he had toward Laban, and the deceit that had happened. You know, that's just poison to the soul. In this Torah portion, of course, we learn about the birth of the 12 the sons, which is magnificent. Think about Leah. Leah was the only one that was buried in the cave of Machpelah. Rachel died in a different place. In fact, even today, UNESCO, part of the UN, has designated Rachel's tomb as a mosque. Imagine that. The cave of Machpelah, where the patriarchs and matriarchs are buried. Leah was buried with Yaakov in the cave. She gave birth to Yehuda and Levi, the priesthoods and the kings. She gave birth to the first 4 sons, which I think has some messianic prophecy in there, but it shows that people who do and who are faithful to Hashem, no matter the circumstance, Hashem bless them. Hashem wants to bless us all. So this gives us a good idea of what Hashem wants from us. He wants us to obey Him. He wants us to follow, and He will bless us. Look what happens to Yaakov. Yaakov ends up just getting blessed tremendously by Hashem. The riches beyond what he can imagine. But not just his business prowess, but his relationship with Hashem, because he's a prophet, because he's Yaakov Avinu. And it's interesting, another point of Midrash. Remember, Hashem calls Yaakov a different name. What does He call him? He calls him Israel. And see, if you read, Yaakov is attracted to Rachel because she's beautiful, the Torah tells us. And Leah has tender eyes. Now, we've heard Yaakov is called Israel, and when Hashem refers to Yaakov as Israel, that's his spiritual side. That's his strong connection with Hashem. When he calls him Yaakov, that's his earthly, fleshly side. So the sages teach us that Rachel was the earthly, fleshly wife, because he was attracted to her through sight and the way she looked. But Leah was his spiritual wife. She was the one that was the wife of Israel, not the wife of Yaakov, but the wife of Israel. So that's kind of an interesting take on things, and contemplate that. Just a magnificent thing. Well, I hope this helps you with Vayeitzei. I hope you had thank you for watching.